meeting to order. We have roll call, please.
Please pay attention, the order has changed because of Naomi. Dankert.
Here.
Gallops.
Here.
Godsky.
Here.
Iverson.
Here.
Reamer.
Here.
Schatzinger.
Here.
Sorensen.
Here.
Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Alphabetical.
It's alphabetical.
No, that's what I said.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm Reverend Karen Gigax Rodriguez. It's an honor to help begin the meeting. Let's pray together. As we gather this evening, Creator, Eternal God, we are grateful for the gift of this beautiful day and for the promise of spring and sunshine and warmth. Thank you for each person gathered here, the gifts that they bring, the time that they're giving to not only serve themselves, but to serve the collective good. And thank you for the trust with which they do what they do, and they steward what is theirs to steward. Bless the meeting this evening. Come near with your presence, your guidance, and your discernment in minds and in hearts. We pray these things in the name of the Creator, the Redeemer, and the Sustainer. Amen.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda, Mayor.
I'll second.
Motion by Doug, second by Jonathan. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. We have no one signed up for public comment tonight. We're moving on to accepting informal reports from standing committee and staff. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve as published?
I will make a motion to approve as published.
I'll second.
Motion by David, second by Mark. Any discussion? John?
Could we just pull out EMS? I have a couple of comments on.
Go ahead.
Okay. In the report, I'm just curious why, first off, I'm curious why we don't have a EMS board. We have a Department of Public Works board, we have a fire department board, park and rec board. Why we don't have a EMS board. And secondly, I'd like to see in the report the number of staff that we have and their qualifications for basic versus paramedic, you know, their qualifications on that. Also, I don't see, and maybe I missed it, but, and I would call it, the fire department calls it mutual aid, but I'd like to see how many times the city of Berlin needs to come to Ripon because we're understaffed.
Okay.
Certainly, I can file questions with Chief Mitch and get those questions answered to you. These reports are generated and are pretty consistent. The reason for, you know, an EMS board, we've never had an EMS board. The council is the EMS board. That is how this is acted here. And the EMS chief reports to the administrator. Beyond that, certainly we can get you information. I would also probably call attention to if there's an annual report, there's probably some of this information in there stating summaries of positions and things of that nature. But we will take this back to the chief and get you those answers.
Thank you.
I would like to talk about financial report for a minute.
Go ahead.
I've noticed that looks like we're starting to do a bit more business locally. Besides Hy-Vee, Home and Ford, Good Impressions, newspaper, Quality Plumbing. I see we also have Schmidt Lumber on here now. We've added him, we're sourcing materials from them. And of course, Cardinal Construction, Fond du Lac Company, but that's still pretty local anyway. We're building our DPW building. So I'd like to highlight that. Cliff's Tire and Battery too in Nampa, Ace Hardware. So we do as much business as we can, and I know we're always looking for further opportunities to partner with local businesses.
Thank you, Doug. John?
One more with building inspector report. I'm glad to see we have money in versus money out, but could I also ask if we could get the hours in the office by the building inspector and hours in the field by the building inspector and any other persons in the field that have to do inspections?
The detailed breakdown of all the invoicing can break it down, what inspection, what address, office hours, all of that. We didn't put that all in the information because we thought that was a little too much, but certainly as that comes out, we can provide that and show you everything that's going on in terms of hours in the field, by inspection, so on and so forth. They break it down to that granular level, so we can provide that.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there any more discussion on informal reports from standing committee and staff? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving these reports, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Those are approved. Thank you. Moving on to consent calendar. This consists of council minutes from March 11 and 24, as well as a certificate of appropriateness for 303 and 305 Watson. Would there be a motion to approve as published?
I'll make a motion to approve as published.
I'll second.
A motion by John, second by Steve. Any discussion on consent calendar? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Thank you. Colleen?
I should have mentioned this, and I'm assuming you saw this, but the check marks look like they're off again in the minutes, it looks
Yeah.
like.
But I would like to do that to clean them in the system. I don't know what I looked at this morning.
There's a couple of them that are off.
Page 3 of 4 of the minutes.
It's on both of them.
It's just they're jumping up.
But there's also people on the same line too.
Yeah, I couldn't do anything about that, unfortunately. Other than just removing that completely from the minutes, there's nothing I could do to fix that. It
Well, I
just
think-
automatically populates out of the program we use.
I think what's hard is if this is meant to be a public record, and it's an inaccurate public record, I mean, we need to figure out how to make it accurate. That's the bottom line.
Is it possible to check with the software company to see if there's a formatting thing we can fix?
Yes, no.
No?
Yes, I looked into it, you know, there's a big that they can look at it, or it's next updates, I was told.
We can manually override it. We'll have to manually override it, so we'll get it taken care of.
So how do we accept it then if it's wrong, or we just say,
Well, it's already been accepted, but we, moving forward, we'll get it corrected.
okay.
All right, tonight I do have a proclamation. This is about Arbor Day. Whereas the legislature of the state has adopted an act designating Arbor Day, and by that act has designated April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the state of Wisconsin. And whereas it is the purpose of the designation of this day throughout the nation to encourage the planting of shade and forest trees, to encourage the harvesting of our forest crops by approved conservation methods, and to encourage the protection of our forests from devastating fires, insects, and disease that destroy the beauty and usefulness of our woodlands as well as their wildlife. And whereas the city of Ripon has been designated a Tree City USA for a total of 26 years, and whereas the city of Ripon was awarded Tree City USA Growth Award in 2024 to recognize the significant increase in urban forestry spending, new programming, and tree planting partnerships, and whereas through the cooperation of all residents of the city of Ripon, the beneficial effects of forest tree planting, proper conservation practices in harvesting, timber, and the protection from natural enemies of the forest can be materially increased, and we can pass on an enduring heritage of a vital natural resource to succeeding generations. Now, therefore, I, Theodore Grant, Mayor of the City of Ripon, do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the City of Ripon. The City of Ripon urges everyone able to do so to observe this day by the planting of one or more trees. The City of Ripon also encourages residents to participate in the Parks and Recreation Department's Arbor Day activities in partnership with Ripon Area School District on the 25th. Might I get a motion to approve that proclamation?
I'll make a motion to approve that proclamation.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mark, second by Ellen. Any discussion? Julie?
I'll say thanks for bringing this forward. I think not only is it good for the environment to have trees, but a lot of people point out when they come to visit that Ripon is a place that feels comfortable and welcoming because of some of the older trees that have been here. And this is obviously planting new ones means that that will continue for generations.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving this proclamation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Thank you. All right, moving on to our first agenda item, the library renovation project review and authorization. We do have a presentation for the council. You need the TV?
I got this one.
There it is.
Oops. If I want to do this.
Let's swap screens.
I'm curious.
And the slideshow and go into the...
No, if you go to display settings, and then
We'll do this. We'll do this. We'll do this. We got something else. Plan.
PDF.
Look at that. Thanks, everybody. This is update and review and authorization of the planned library renovation project. Jason Pusto from PRA is here, as well as Dan Romer from MSA is on the line. The library board has reviewed a more in-depth presentation, but we wanted to come before the common council tonight and give an overview of the project as it goes to bid and get authorization to proceed. So with that, Jason, thank you. You can take it over.
Thanks, Adam. Again, Jason Pusto, Plunkett Research Architects, thank you for having me this evening. And as mentioned, MSA Professional Services, which is our partner engineering firm, Dan Rammer, their representative, is on the call. So I want to just take a little bit of a second and we'll talk about project scope, but maybe before we do that, let's just talk about kind of the steps that we've taken to get to where we are at today. Late in 2024, we were hired to start the design process for this project. As part of that, some of our initial work was spending time with the library staff, understanding some of the issues they have with their space, some of the challenges they face with the building. We also referred to some prior design work that the library board had undertaken with some concepts for both the exterior of the building and some improvements to the interior. Similarly, we also worked with Alan and Adam with the city to understand some of the building systems. We spent numerous hours investigating and reviewing the building systems. What we found were a number of building systems that were out of date, some equipment that really couldn't be serviced anymore, and a number of items like that. Then the last thing we did is we went through a design process with numerous meetings with the library staff, trying to get a better understanding of what they're looking for in a library for the next 20, 25, 30 years, and similarly trying to make sure that we're getting the appropriate engineering systems to allow the library building to last for another 25, 30, or maybe even longer with minimal investment. So that being said, up on the screen then is kind of the scope that was come up for the project and ultimately what we designed to. And since that print is a little bit small, I'll probably walk through and read some of these. But on the site, so there's 5 items listed, and the first is some parking upgrades to allow for better ingress and egress. But most importantly, the parking lot's going to be changed to allow a drive-up book drop, and that's something that most libraries have these days, and something that I know they've been looking to use for a long time. Now, there is a book drop there, but it's on the wrong side, and so unless you've got a passenger, you're not using the book drop. Asphalt repairs and some drainage issues are being addressed. We've got a more inclusive and easier to use entrance pathway right into the building. Anybody's ever been there, I think the steps like a foot high. And so we've reduced that and also addressed some of the drainage issues that are resultant of that. We're providing better access to the lower level patio and the nature areas that exist. We're creating an outdoor reading area off the adult area, and you'll see more of that in a minute. And then also, just as I mentioned, improved overall site drainage so that we're controlling runoff, controlling how that water gets into the creek, and trying to really make the site better for everyone to use, all parts of the building. Then as far as the building, we're completely reimagining the first floor, the main level of the building. We'll take a look at that in a minute here. Improvements to the circulation desk. We're creating some dedicated reading areas, both indoors and outdoors. New finished materials throughout that level. Upgraded, remodeled, inclusive, accessible toilet rooms that can be used not only by all, so mothers with children, those that maybe are a walker, all those types of things. And the last thing we're doing is a partial window replacement, and then also some selective glass replacement. So that will bring all the windows to the, for lack of a description, the current type of window, double pane glass, insulated glass. There are parts of the building that don't have that. And then the glass replacement is really to address some of the glare issues that exist in the building. Finally, system upgrades. So building systems that are being addressed as part of this project. Roof repairs, plumbing system upgrades, rebuilding of major HVAC equipment. There's some outdoor equipment that's directly off of one of the outdoor reading areas, and we've enclosed that and incorporated some sound reduction items into the design to try to make that area more user-friendly in the summer when air conditioning equipment is running, but also the library has a lot of outdoor programs in. A series of electrical equipment repairs and upgrades. And then lastly, the vast majority of the building is getting all new lighting, energy efficient LED fixtures. So that being said, I've got a series of just kind of drawings that we'll just walk through that kind of highlight the design. First is the site, and Adam is kind enough to look at the north side and show the north side of the site where there's a new winding, meandering path that will get down to the lower level that will be handicap accessible, so those that are in a wheelchair, or even if you're just in a walker, or maybe you just got your children and they're in a stroller, but very easy path to use and get down to that lower level area that they use for reading and programs, and also just a great place to sit. And then expanded patio right where the cursor is now, and then providing better access to some of those outdoor spaces that exist along the water's edge. And then kind of the dark gray area that you see in the middle of the screen now is the areas where the asphalt is being replaced. And then you can see our parking lots being restriped, angled parking to force that ingress and egress and that one-way traffic, and then create the ability to have the book drop on the correct side of the car. Last thing I'd point out then is kind of right where Adam's got his cursor there, and that's the new outdoor reading area that's being created off of the main floor, the first floor. Drawing you're seeing here is the lower level. The vast majority of the work that's being done on the lower level has really become considered four things. So there are some upgrades to the bathrooms I mentioned both. There are some existing multi-user bathrooms in the middle of the building. And then there are some older bathrooms that will be converted to single-user, multi-gender, more accessible for all to use in that area. So that's the second thing. Third thing is the kitchenette is being upgraded. There are a number of code issues that existed in that kitchenette that are being corrected. And then the last piece of the puzzle is really systems. So the glass window replacement on that side of the building that you're seeing on your screen on that lower level area, and then all of the building systems that are being addressed in both the mechanical rooms, the electric rooms, and the like. Go ahead. Main floor or first floor, the library is completely being reimagined. So currently, if you were to go into the library, you go to the left to go to the children's and teens area. Now, when you come into the library, when the project is incomplete, you go to the right to the children's area. Off the children's area, we've added 2 spaces, a dedicated toilet room for mothers and children or fathers and children to use. And then there's also what we're describing as a mother's room, but that room serves a number of purposes. Allows for calming, diaper changing, and all those things that those people that bring their youngsters to the library need.
Like nursing?
Nursing, yep, all of that. And then in the central part of the library, the circulation desk is being completely redone, reorganized how it's used, and all that, again, is based on both our experience doing these types of projects and then a valuable staff input that allowed us to create a space that's much more functional, friendly, accessible than exists now. And then kind of to the left of that circulation desk, again, similarly, we're reworking the toilet rooms to create these single-user toilet rooms from these really hard-to-use existing toilet rooms. And then just above there, where the current director's office is, we're creating a staff office and then an individualized study room that will allow young adults, teens, to have a space to go to do homework, work together on a project, or read together. Last thing then, where Adam's got his cursor, is the new outdoor reading area that will be created, so that we'll have an enclosed wall and fence around it. It is slightly close to the road, so that's being done for 2 reasons. 1, for any safety, if a vehicle were to have a mishap, and then 2, just for a little bit of security for the library so that the materials do stay in the library and don't go walking down the street, so to speak. So generally speaking, that's the project. The one other thing that I wanted to mention is the project's being funded predominantly through a grant, and part of that grant is to provide upgraded internet services, upgraded what we'll call Zoom rooms or telehealth rooms, so spaces where an individual could go to potentially take a call with a doctor, potentially have a virtual job interview, potentially have a Zoom call with their employer, that type of thing. So there's rooms that are being created throughout the library to allow that to occur. That's one of the drivers of that grant, is to create those spaces and that upgraded technology in those spaces. So that being said, that's kind of the project in a nutshell, in a quick, 8-minute summary, if you will. We're going to take a look at just some imagery that's been prepared that reflects the design as it's been put together. You'll see predominantly new finishes in here, so new colors, new flooring, new architectural elements. And then you will see some furniture in white, so that's a placeholder. So the project doesn't include replacement of some of the library's existing furniture. Some of the library's furniture is in poor shape, I think it's fair to say, and so we're trying to selectively replace that and get them similar to the building furniture that will last a long time before it needs replacement. So right there, you're seeing a couple different views of that reconfigured circulation desk, and then the work area behind that for their staff. Then this is kind of one end of the circulation desk. It's at a lower height that not only provides ADA access, but does allow potentially like a youngster to come up and check out their own books. Everything that exists in the library right now is tall, and this will be at a shorter height, so somebody's son or daughter can bring their own books to the checkout desk. There will be a space, you can see in the rendering, some shelving and some placeholder tables, but eventually that area will be filled and dedicated to the Friends of the Library's book sale area. So a separate area for that defined, and allows to clean up. If you've been, there's a lot of stuff going on in that front lobby space, trying to clean that up and allow better visibility, better access, and better workflow. So that drawing that you see is the what I describe as a floor pattern plan. So you can see that there are a number of colorful different flooring elements that are being created. Those are you'll see in the upcoming images being used to create different seating areas, different reading areas, different study areas, and just different spaces within the main floor. So as you kind of leave the circulation desk and start to come into the, what is currently the west side of the library, and you'll be greeted by an area where there's display books, new books, and then further back you can see kind of that gray and orange element that will become the teen area that will be dedicated to them. The library currently doesn't have a space like that. Then to the left of that space, there'll be a new glass wall added that provides access to that patio and also provides good visibility so the staff can monitor the activities that may or not occur.
I was going to wait till the end of the presentation, but I thought since it was just there, the teen area, is there anything more you can say about what else will be unique in that section other than teen-specific books?
Yeah, so a couple different things. There's a variety of seating elements. So there's desks to maybe do homework or read. There's soft seating where somebody can lounge and be comfortable. As I said, you can see the glass with the kind of teal color around it. They have their own individualized work area, private area. Doesn't exist now, so a place where they can be a little louder than your, traditional library user, if we can describe it as such. And then kind of on the opposite side, just off of that access to the outdoor patio, you can see both the ceiling element and those floor elements that we referenced before, and a series of what will be variety of different seating types. You can see tables and chairs, you can see some soft furniture, and that's all for the adults, different reading groups, and or just different spaces to work on something, read something, or reference something. And again, here's that teen study room that I referenced that will be available to them. And then you can see lots of glass, lots of visibility so staff can monitor what's occurring in there.
Excuse me, I may be outdated, but do you have a place where you put all your historic books and stuff?
Yeah, so they have currently have a historic book area, and that's being recreated in the library. There's a dedicated section to that off of the adult area.
Thank you.
No problem. And you can see again in that, just as I was, maybe we should have waited for a minute for the question, but there you can see kind of the variety of seating area, some of the soft goods. You can even see in the background, there's some high top tables, just providing different access, allow the teens to have a variety of different potential activities within that space. We're going to go to the other side of the library, which is currently the east side, which currently has the adult area. The existing fireplace that's there, that's all going to be removed and then reconfigured to a dedicated area for the children's library. We spent a whole lot of time with the library staff, especially the children's librarian, trying to create a space that will allow them to have more programs, greater programs, and flexibility. And then you can start to see a variety of different seating areas, variety of different shelving types. So you can see small tables and chairs, and then a soft good type circular seating area where they do intend to have some of their reading programs at. Currently, those are all down at the lower level, and they want to bring them up as there's a tendency for those that attend those programs, then grab a book or two or three or four. So hopefully you can start to increase the use of this area of the library and more items being taken and checked out. So with that, that's kind of a brief synopsis of the project. And again, I'd really like to thank the library staff. They've been very cooperative, and we've been working on a tight time frame here from a design standpoint. We had to do that in order to meet the requirements of the grant. The grant tells us that we have to be in construction no later than July 1st. And so we've had an accelerated design schedule. They've been flexible, allowing us to meet when we need to, get into the building when we need to. And I guess just an overall summary, I think it's a great project, touching all the building systems, touching the vast majority of the area in the library, even if it's just new finishes. And I really think it'll be a great project.
My question is probably not so much for you, but for Adam. This, by the way, this is terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is the grant a federal grant or a state grant?
Generally speaking, it is a state grant.
Okay.
From federal funds that have already come into the state.
They're already here?
Yes.
Nobody can take it away?
So
I'm just checking.
So just to be clear, the contract with the State of Wisconsin Department of Administration for the Flexible Facilities Program there was some delay in it because they added language about what happens if there is a act or an executive order that would pull the funding. In working through the funding with MSA and just reviewing everything, there's no indication that this grant is, at jeopardy. Certainly, we've talked about that. There are other projects out there that are similar to ours. And if we get to a point where, in the next month or so, once this is bid out, there's a lapse in funding, certainly we have to narrow the scale of the project, but that is not anticipated at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is we're working on 3 different projects that are taking dollars from that grant, and everybody's continuing to proceed similar to what Adam and his group are. There's been no indication globally that those dollars are not anticipated to be pulled back, so.
Terrific. Fantastic presentation, really excited. I think a library is really the heart of a democratic city. So thanks for what you've presented here. Maybe I missed it, but speaking of sort of an area where people come together and meet, is there an overview of kind of that community room space?
Yeah, good question. So there are a couple of what I'll call public meeting room spaces on the lower level. There's the larger, what they call Silver Creek Room, and then there's 2 other smaller rooms. So that Silver Creek Room predominantly is just getting mechanical system upgrades, so new lighting and some technology changes, and then some of the finishes are being redone. If you've been down there, there's some paint that's damaged, that kind of thing. So we are addressing that room. And then the 2 other rooms, Jorgensen and Soresco, I think I've got that right, are also being addressed, predominantly finishes, but also, as I mentioned, the one room is being dedicated to telehealth and Zoom, so it's getting some upgraded technology. So yes, those rooms are getting addressed.
What do you need from us?
To seek a motion to authorize the city and the library to proceed with the project.
I move that we authorize the city and library to move forward with the project. Whatever.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion by Ellen, second by Mark. Any discussion on the motion? Jolene?
Well, I was just going to, you could probably talk for forever. Is there anything, because it sounds like you're in the business of working with other communities and their libraries. It sounds like is there anything that you feel is missing or that is innovative that cities are moving to right now? It sounds like you've maximized the funding as was possible here. Do you see a next phase or?
Yeah, it's a great question. I do think that we've incorporated a lot into this project, both from a library function standpoint and also from a mechanical systems upgrade. As far as what we see other communities doing, I think we're addressing some of the things that are, I'll use the word hot buttons for other communities. One is that book drop, real easy to do from a car. We know that a lot of people really like that feature. The second thing we've done is we've created a couple different outdoor spaces so you can have outdoor programming, just the ability to maybe grab a book and read outside. So I think that outdoor reading space on the first level or the main floor is really going to be something that will really be a positive aspect to the design. And then really the last thing is flexibility with furniture. And even though we're still in the furniture planning phase, you could see that there are varieties. We all work differently, we all do things differently, we all want to be at the library for a potentially different reason. I think there's a lot of flexibility built into this design via furniture that we see occurring in a lot of different communities.
I can just add, the initial project was essentially scoped out to address the second story or main floor, just kind of this side, right? The grant has sort of created a longer list, right? And certain things that Jason mentioned have to be in there because of the grant requirements. But then we have been able to leverage the grant and existing fundraised dollars from the library to put together a project that wasn't just about $1 million or so. We're scoping this out at around $2 to $2.5 million, right? Depending on how it bids, there's always things that we didn't address because we have to have a project, and we can't just have unlimited dollars, right? There's not unlimited dollars. The library board may decide to expand certain things and fund it. Again, the city owns the building. We are managing the grant. We have been awarded the grant, but no tax dollars at this point are planned to go into this project at all, right? This is all fundraised and grant dollars going into this project. If it comes in bid, very well, there probably frees up some dollars to expand and address some little things here and there that were left out. But generally speaking, from a budget and a comprehensive review, this is pretty dialed in for the dollars we have.
Anyone else? Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the motion is to authorize the city and library to proceed with this project. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Thank you. All right, next up is consideration and possible action on a resolution creating tax increment district number 16, approving its project plan and establishing its boundaries. We have Phil Cosson here with Ellers to talk us through.
Hey, Phil.
Good evening. Good to be back with you. Adam, I know everybody has in their packet. Are you going to put it on the screen as well?
I can.
This is your test. There you go. Thank you. Well, what I'd like to do is just provide you with a little more high-level overview of this tax increment district. We spent quite a bit of time over the last 6 months or so putting this together. We've had some initial meetings already. I'll talk about those in a little bit, and then hopefully after tonight, if you are comfortable, this will be approved, and there's one more approval needed for this to become in effect as well. So what we're talking about tonight is tax increment district number 16. And if you go into just that first page in the top, there are some key dates that I'd like to just touch on. On March 19th, we had the initial meeting of the Joint Review Board. So what that is, the group is representative of all the taxing bodies, so school, county, technical college, the city, and then a citizen member. That 5-member group make up a Joint Review Board. And they got to hear about the project plan. There was no real action taken by them. After that, that evening, we held a public hearing, Plan Commission did, to go through the project plan with Plan Commission. The process with TIF is that Plan Commission actually holds the public hearing, not the City Council. That's in the statutes, and so they held the public hearing. We went through the project plan. Again, we really didn't have a lot of comments, pro or con, to that, but we did hold a public hearing, which is a requirement. And then Plan Commission had a resolution they forwarded on to the City Council for tonight's action. If you're comfortable, it'll go back to that Joint Review Board for their action, which is tentatively scheduled for April 29th. So this is step 2 of the 3-step approval process to create the tax increment district in the city. So section 1, we have put together an executive summary, and I will just kind of touch on a few of the items in the executive summary, and then I'll talk about some of the maps that are included and some of the numbers that we've come up with. So this will be TID number 16 in the city, and it's a mixed-use tax increment district. And what mixed use is just that. There has to be at least 2 land uses that make up 50% of the area. Here it's primarily commercial residential, some institutional, some city-owned property, but we meet that criteria. It's on the south side of the city, 53 acres, and it's a Bettleman Street, Ringstead Drive, Sandmar Drive, and Pleasant Street in that general area of the city, where currently tax increment district number 7 serves, and we'll touch on TID number 7 in a little bit. Because this is a mixed-use tax increment district, we cannot have more than 35% of the total area by acreage we can't exceed it for newly platted residential. So one of the tests you'll see in here that we went through is to make sure that newly platted residential doesn't comprise more than 35% of the total area. We've gone through that math. We've spent some time going through that, and you'll see that in the maps that have been provided. Project cost of a little over $4 million, and incremental value, meaning new construction, new growth, is expected to be about $16 million over time. Now, this is a funding mechanism. This is how you get projects paid for, but approving the project plan doesn't automatically say you're going to borrow $4 million. It gives you the ability to pay for projects you do out of the TID fund, but again, it's not we're not in any way circumventing the normal process you would go through to approve any capital expenditure. That's still a process you would go through, just as you do for any expenditure. In the project plan on page 5, you'll see that a couple of things that we have to do. We have to make the case that but for tax increment financing, this would not take place. And if you look at the area that's been developed along with the needs of the initial developer that we're talking with, there are some incentives that they're looking for and some infrastructure needed to support the area. And again, TID 7 has been relatively built up, but there's a lot of open space still left in TID 7. Then I forgot to mention the initial development is SC Swiderski out of Mosinee. They are the developer that is really driving this for the multifamily housing development that they are proposing at this, build out a portion of this site. On page number 7, you'll see we have a map of the area, and a little bit difficult to read, but in the orange is essentially a portion of tax increment district number 7. The blue area is what will be tax increment district number 16, and you'll see that there's in the blue, a couple of the blue parcels, we have this, you can see that it's shown as kind of this hatching. That is essentially where we are overlaying parcels on top of tax increment district number 7. And that's allowed to do that. There's no problem in doing that. What it does is the parcels that were originally in TID 7 now are going to be TID 16 are frozen. So whatever increment, if any, have been developed in that area, that'll stay with tax increment district number 7. Any new development that happens once this district is in place, the revenue will go to tax increment district number 16. So that's essentially how you do an overlay district and what happens with the revenue once it's generated. On page number 9 is another map. This map really kind of shows you the anticipated, or the existing, I should say, land use. You can see that here we have some residential, some agriculture, some institutional. The school building obviously is the institutional part. And then we have some city-owned land as well on the right side of the page as well, where the development is going to be proposed to take place. So this is the existing land use map. In a little bit, we'll show you what's going to happen with the proposed future land use. If you go to page 10, we have a parcel list that's been put together. So this has got 8 parcels located within this district. It is a total, as I mentioned, about 53 acres of land. And what we've identified is about 16.56 will be newly platted residential. So we're at about 31% of that 35% threshold. The key here is, again, we can't exceed that 35%. So you can rezone land, but again, you can't be over that 35% threshold once the development is actually built out. So room for residential, room for commercial here with some restrictions. One other restriction for the newly platted residential area is that you have to have a density of at least 3 units per acre or greater. not by parcel or by area, but by the overall tax increment district. I don't think that'll be an issue here because we have the multifamily from Swiderski. That'll be a higher density, some single family later on, but when you average it all out, we'll be at that 3 units per acre or greater, which again is a requirement for the mixed-use tax increment district. This currently, on the next page, has an equalized value, a current value of about 1.3 million. So that 1.3 million that's there today will be shared with all the taxing bodies through the life of the district. So the county, school district, city, and technical college will all get their portion of that 1.3 million. As development occurs, the full amount of the increased taxes stay with the city. That's the power of TIF, is that you retain that full amount and you reinvest that back into this area through infrastructure, through incentives. You'll see there's a variety of projects that we've identified to be undertaken throughout this area. We have a laundry list in section 6 of different projects that may take place. Kind of a descriptive. We kind of hit on everything just about you can imagine. But the one I want to really point out is if you go to page 18 and the bottom of that page, you'll see we are including projects that are outside the boundaries of the tax increment district to be eligible. So we have to be within a half-mile radius. So we draw a map. There's a map in here showing the half mile, and the projects have to be within a half mile to be paid for out of the potential increment in the future. So what have been identified for capital projects just outside of the boundaries are the development of the Sandmar Pond Park, the stormwater maintenance, Sandmar Pond, some stormwater drainage easements, extension of Rogers Road. We have the lot sale program for Sandmar, Barlow Park improvements, and some miscellaneous street projects. You can see the names, Ardmore, Village, Hope, and Griswold roads. So small segments of those roads that will be paid for when they're improved by out of the TID fund as opposed to the general levy. So this is a way to get some of those projects paid for from a different fund than just through the tax levy, which hits all the property taxpayers. So I wanted to point those out. On page 21 is a map that shows the location of each of those projects, along with all of the projects that have been identified in the project plan. So you can see the projects listed to the left of the map, and then you can see that there's a corresponding tag or dot that shows the location of each one of those projects. One of the big projects that are going to be talked about in this area is the new well, and that project is going to be only a small portion of that paid through the TID. It's going to serve a much bigger area, so we can't have it all paid through the tax increment district, but rather a portion of that will be paid for through the tax increment district. We have a future land use map in here. So on page 22, you can see the land use map. Kept it very simple. We have some residential components in yellow. We have commercial in the future. Obviously, a portion of this on the east side of Meadowman Road is the school property. So we're not anticipating at this point that they're moving, but it's in the tax increment district. If there's a change in property or if the school district makes a decision in the future to build elsewhere, then this is in the district and it could be actually provided some type of incentive for this to redevelop over time. There's nothing negative about being in the tax increment district, no harm to the school district. They're well aware that this is all being planned and they're part of this tax increment district. So we have a list of project costs. It's very small print. That's not intentional. It's so small on my page that I can't read it. So I have it on my phone. So if you look at the parcel list, we have, the project list, there's 16 different projects that have been identified, and some are those half-mile radius projects I talked about earlier. But we also have in here Alliant Energy utility line relocation, Again, a portion of the municipal well that would be paid for out of the tax increment district, about $750 coming out of the TID out of the $4 million project. We have Ringstead Street extension. We have some improvements to Ringstead Street, Meadowman lot demolition and cleanup for some structures adjacent to Meadowman that the city feels are not the highest and best use for the area and would be better off to be raised at some point. We have park improvements, stormwater management in the area, Barlow Park improvements, the road segments that I talked about earlier, Sandmar lot sale program, which has had some success out there already. So there's a variety of projects, and we have this really phased out over a number of years. We expect this will take some time to fully implement over a number of years. But having the projects in the project plan allow you to pay for that out of the TID fund. So the intent was to be intentional here and make sure we had all the projects listed, so we're not coming back and having to do amendments all the time. Try to be comprehensive and look at the different projects. On page number 26 is a list of potential development. Now, besides the first project from Swiderski, everything else is pretty much a kind of high-level estimate. You can see a lot of this is housing. As again, some of these lots become available, we expect the housing development to occur. We have some commercial development in the future as well. But again, we're trying to be a bit mindful of what can occur and how quickly it can occur out there. You see, we have a build out really over about 12, 13 year period. So it's not all going to happen tomorrow. We expect a slow build out in this area. We also have on page 27 an estimate of the increment that'll be generated. Two assumptions, the key assumptions we make in here. One, because a lot of this is residential, we do show a 1.5% property appreciation factor for the new development that occurs. So property improving, or not improving, but appreciating in value. And we do have a flat equalized tax rate. Now, you control a segment of that, but this takes into effect, obviously, the school, the county, and the technical college tax rate as well, which you really don't have a lot of control over. So we keep it flat. We've seen declining tax rates statewide. We do think that that trend, I don't know, it's good saying it's not going to reverse, but it's going to slow. We just can't continue to see double-digit property improvement values forever in the state. We think that's going to slow down over the next couple of years. You still live under levy limits, so it's hard to grow your budget. So we expect pretty flat tax rates going forward. We have a cash flow on page 29, which takes all of the elements that we just talked about, brings it into an overall cash flow. You know, the one thing I can tell you is it's not going to look like this. I know that. There's a lot of assumptions here. So what we do is we will monitor, working with the city to make sure that our goal is to not get too far ahead of the development with costs and try to match up the development with the costs and make sure that this works from a cash flow perspective over the life of the district. But you know, with that comes challenges, economic challenges. I created a lot of tax increment districts back in 2006, 7, 8. Everybody kind of knows what happened in 8, 9, and 10. So not much happened. So, you know, there's a lot of news out there. There's a lot of change. And, you know, I think you just take your best position with each development and each developer and not try to get too far ahead of the costs. That's good kind of sound practice. The last couple of sections that we need to identify is, are any of these properties recently annexed? And that's not the case here. How much of the land is going to be devoted to retail business? That's a bit of a kind of a guess. Adam came up with a very creative 6.9%. So we went with it, 6.9%. We have to talk about zoning ordinances. We know there'll be some changes to the zoning and to your master plan for this entire area, building codes, and then are we relocating any persons or businesses in this area as well. The last item I want to touch on is page 33, is where we have projects that are going to be funded out of a tax increment district that aren't fully going to be funded. We need to identify what the other costs are. Here you can see we have the new municipal well project, again, a ballpark $4 million cost, of which a small piece will come from this tax increment district, and the rest will have to come from the utility to pay the rest. Lastly, Attorney Wirtz provided a letter opinion on page number 35 of the plan. His review, I don't want to speak for him, but I've known him a long time, so I probably could, is really to review the project plan to make sure that all of the elements that are required to be in the project plan per the statute are in here. He's not necessarily analyzing the financials of it and analyzing whether or not a project makes sense or not, but really are all the elements required in the project plan per statute. So that's your attorney's review as well. So that was relatively quick. Happy to answer any questions. Adam's worked closely with us on putting this plan together, but are there questions from the council?
Steve.
My question is they're going to put a well right at the edge of the city by the road. I can see that on the map. Now, when they dig that well, is that going to dry up the other wells of the people that live in the town that are just on the other side of this line?
Yeah, so that's the idea is to likely go down further than wells of, your general residential well, right? Generally speaking, the water supply in the aquifers down there are sufficient, or else we wouldn't be selecting it as a place to drill a well. Impacts on alternative wells, I can't speak to what other wells are necessarily out there, but we have distance requirements and things that have been met with siting a well in that area that would lend us to not believe that there would be a problem like that.
This well site has been looked at by the DNR and the city as kind of our best option. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we've gone through a well site investigation. We've reviewed, I would say, 7 or 8 sites across the community, some which have been eliminated by the DNR or other engineers. SCH worked on that project. We have limited it down to kind of 2 general areas, including this. This one was prioritized over another location because of the ability to use a TIF district and leverage the SC Swiderski project to further enhance the area and invest in the well, which is going to be a rather costly, project, and relieve some of that pressure, if it works out well with the TIF district, on the ratepayer or, the taxpayer.
So whether or not the TIF district goes through, is approved tonight, the well site is still something that the city is looking to continue development on down there?
I would have to, honestly, we would probably look
elsewhere
and see because of cost.
Thank you.
Ellen?
I move we accept a resolution creating tax increment district number 16, approving both its project plan and establishing its boundaries within the city of Ripon.
I'll second that.
A motion by Ellen, second by Doug. More discussion?
Just a comment. So, I've been thinking about this for like a month. I've talked to Adam, League of Municipalities, municipal think tank. I've been trying to wrap my head around just TIDs in general. So, not a comment about this. I think it's well put together. I follow it. I understand it. I just I just can't get on board with the premise of TIDS. So my no vote is just holistic to TIDS in general. And I'm not assuming that I'll change anybody's mind, so I'm not going to like belabor the meeting anymore beyond like an hour and 15 minutes that it's at. Just know that, you know, it's not just a blanket no. There was a lot of thought that went into it. So.
Jolene?
Hannah, when you estimated the 6.9% for retail, what are you imagining might be a possible retail?
I think it just came down to like a site that could have like 2 acres of like a you know, kind of like a commercial mixed-use site, right? So it literally just penciled out to that number. We have to make an estimate, so theoretically with a commercial site, you could see something that's front-facing on a state highway go to a more retail-based enterprise versus, you know, more of a yard or some other commercial, whatever you can think of, right? So, pretty calculated.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Phil. Motion on the floor is to approve the resolution creating tax increment district number 16 and approve its project plan and establishing its boundaries. We have a roll call vote, please.
Denkert.
Yes.
Gallops.
Yes.
Kotsky.
No.
Iverson.
Yes.
Reamer.
Yes.
Schatzinger.
Yes.
Sorensen.
Yes.
Split.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. All right. Moving on then, we have a public hearing for a certificate of appropriateness at 107.5 Watson Street. The time is now 8:02. I will open the public hearing. Adam, could we start with a timeline of events with this?
So in your packet, there's some information, including a letter that was sent last month to the property owners of 107 Watson Street regarding a denial of a certificate of appropriateness application. You can kind of read the summary of information there. The original application came in on December 6th, came under review by the Historic Preservation Commission on December 6th, 2023. And it was essentially approved contingent upon the replacement of the windows, filling the original window opening. That would require essentially an arch-top window as specified in the downtown historic district design manuals. Upon further review, last month, the Historic Preservation Commission voted to deny the application after the original submission. There's some supporting documents just to kind of summarize some things. The original application is in your packet just to see kind of what was originally applied for. And that essential denial kicks off a 45-day period to schedule a public hearing and a decision by the Common Council regarding whether or not a certificate of appropriateness should be issued for the project.
All right. At this time, I will invite the property owner and her contractors, if they'd like to speak, and make their case.
Hi, I'm Vicki Scharschmidt, and I want to tell you who I am. I moved to Ripon 52 years ago, raised a family here, opened a business, and I have been in business for 52 years. First thing I did, though, is I joined the Chamber of Commerce, because I do care about the other businesses in the area, and I wanted to help the city grow. And I believe that I've done that. At this point in time, well, let's see, I was also one of the founding members of the very first Ripon Fest, the president of the Business and Professional Women's Club, raised my 4 children here. I have done nothing against the city ever, and in this case, I haven't either because there's circumstances surrounding the issue. I gave a lot of my time and money to this town, and I'm currently responsible for at least 2,000 people coming to the city of Ripon during the winter to have their taxes done. So that's who I am. I'm a caring person. I love the city. what I was attempting to do with my building, which is probably 175 years old now, is I was in between renters. I decided it's a time to fix this place up. Let's get it going, looking nice, get some people in here. And so what I did was I stuck a lot of money into that building. And I did realize, I did have a chance to talk to Sue, who was the building inspector. She's the only one that I was in touch with at all. And I called her one evening, and I think it was 1 or 2 days before the meeting that your committees had to decide whether, I was going to get the permit or if things was all a go. And she said, yes, I'm just sure they're going to pass it tomorrow night. And I said to her, does that mean that I can call my crew and tell them to come down and get started? And she said yes. Now, I don't know how many of you other people I was supposed to contact about any of this, but in my eyes, she gave me the approval, so we went ahead with it. Next thing I know, I'm getting all these letters in the mail, and I didn't do things right, and whatever. But I did it based on the verbal commitment of your building inspector. Then later, much later, like a month ago, I found out she isn't even here anymore. That she either got let go or quit or something. So I guess I feel like I'm kind of swinging from the rafters. So anyway, if there's more about the timeline that the gentleman can tell you because they were the installers of what was going on there. So I'll step back for a moment and let them speak.
So essentially, she kind of explained that she was...
Speak into the microphone.
And if you could state your name for the record.
I'm Jake Krieger, I'm with Infinity Exteriors.
Thank you.
Wisconsin-based company, been here for 25 plus years. Basically, I came into the situation, I'm actually one of the owners of Infinity as well, but came into the situation to help Vicki. She kind of explained that she was in a pinch as far as in-between renters go. Came in and said, here's a opportunity to fix this. At that time, I was trying to do like kind to like kind. It was a mistake to not understand that fulfilling the whole area in glass was part of the requirement. In order to speed up the process, we went a little bit outside of what we would normally do. We measured at the same time as we signed the contract. And then the technician went back and ordered the windows. By the time that we got the permit came through, and that's where it was in question. At this point, we were already scheduled to do the install. That's where she got the verbal, everything from that standpoint. After the fact, there was some questions from Sue as to whether or not this could be fixed and if we could put windows above it. And I was waiting on the manufacturer, so there was a lot of back and forth. That went back and forth for months until finally we were brought back into the loop with the most recent letter that we got in December or whatever that was, and that's where we're here today. There was never really ill intent, and then the cost difference, which we didn't know until after the fact, but it's substantial. It would have over doubled the cost of what the project was to begin with for those 3 windows. So that's where we are today.
All right.
Well, one more thing I wanted to say was that in this, because we didn't know that we weren't corresponding with Sue, we don't even know where all the information went. She wasn't here anymore. She wasn't here for over a year. And so here all this time, we think we're answering what you people want when we don't know where the emails even went. So, like I said, I found out a month ago that she was no longer here. So that's what, a year and a half?
2 months she was not here.
Pardon?
2 months she wasn't here.
Okay, well...
Not a year and a half.
Well, I just meant from the beginning when we first started talking.
Okay, but
the change was made January 1st this year.
Oh, okay, well, I didn't know. So I didn't know if any of this information, we weren't getting anything back. We weren't getting any response, so I assumed she wasn't.
So you're saying over the course of that year and a half, you didn't get a response?
We were, if we got something, we responded to it, but then we never heard anything again.
Okay.
I think what, I'm Jason, I'm the regulatory compliance manager for the company. I think what she's trying to explain is until I made a phone call to the city here, I'm not sure who I spoke to, they gave me a Stephanie at a consulting company that now does your city inspections from my understanding. I had a very lengthy conversation with Stephanie, explained the situations and she had not been brought up to date either. So she was no help at that point, and then therefore, soon after is when the letter was produced and sent to Vicky and put into my hands. So there was definitely some disconnect with us trying to work this through and see what we could do. But once Sue stopped responding, it took me to jump in and get a hold of the third-party company that you guys now are using for city inspections, I presume. At least she identified herself as that. So you guys no longer have a city inspector on staff, correct?
Not on staff, but
right.
Even Sue was not on staff. She
Okay. Because I requested a meeting with Stephanie and she said that she doesn't typically do that. It has to come between with the common council.
All right. Do you three have anything else to add at this point? Stay close because I'm sure we'll have questions.
Yeah,
Craig, I assume you'd like to speak?
Craig T-Bon, I'm Ripon's downtown manager, been here for a little over 30 years. I've known Vicky for that entire time period, and she's always been very supportive of the downtown revitalization process. The front side of the image that you have shows the before and after of the renovation. The before image is Google. I don't know if that's 3, 4, 5 years ago, but very little difference between the before and after. I'm working with Vicky to come up with some renovation proposals for her building going forward, so that's on the other side. So, like I said, she's always been supportive of the downtown revitalization process. I don't think she had any intent to hurt her building or that she had any malicious intentions, just this situation occurred. So, I'm just here to support Vicky.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak during the public hearing? All right, so if you'd like to have a seat, I'm sure we'll have direct questions for you here. If there's no one else from the public that would like to speak, I will close the public hearing at 8:13 and start discussion amongst council. Ellen.
Whose signature is this? That is on the Ripon Historic Preservation Commission.
On the applicant?
Yeah.
Chris, I'll write that out.
Sorry. But you can.
Oh, that's Chris, that's one of our permit.
Oh, that's one of your permits. Okay.
That's one of our individuals that deal with permitting.
Okay, so is this for your office use only?
That was our inspector's office use.
Yeah, that's your use. That's the permit. This is your form.
Okay, I'm trying to understand this. So it says, approve with conditions, windows must be use entire original opening per the design manual. Was that
That is Sue's,
written on there so that they
that
could
is
see
Sue's
it?
handwriting.
That's Sue's handwriting, but did they see that? Did you see that?
Not that we were made aware of.
Didn't see.
No.
So I'd like to point out, since you brought up this little box, my first issue with this. The way this form was filled out, it does not have a date received. It does have a check mark in the application compliance for city building codes, as well as historic design manual, as well as a check mark in the approved box, not in the approved with conditions box. So that's issue number one that I see.
May I add to that?
Yes.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. If you look at the form is literally not filled out correctly, right? To that point, if you look at the box where it says it is approved, generally, in most of our contracts that we do, and we do multiple different contracts, let alone historical buildings, we would have looked at essentially, is it approved or not? As an oversight, absolutely, the date on the back, but essentially, we're looking just for approval, of which it does indicate approval on.
You didn't see that?
Correct.
John?
We've got quite a few comments. Just to do the timeline again, I know Adam went through the timeline. It did come to the Historic Preservation Commission on Wednesday, and I think it was December 6th. We did approve it with the intent that they needed to fill in the entire opening per design manual. The very next day, I drove through town and saw that the windows were installed. So they were installed without a permit to begin with. So that's one problem that I see. I find it hard to believe that Sue Leahy would have verbally said, yeah, they're going to go ahead and pass it without her seeing a picture, without her knowing that they're not going to go with the arch-top windows. So that's one comment. If you'd like to say something,
I would.
Okay.
I would like to say something because that's exactly what Sue told me. I am not lying. I have not made it up.
I'm not saying you're lying. I'm
Okay.
just saying I find out.
I discussed it with her on the phone at least one day before the meeting. And I said, you know, this is getting kind of difficult for me. All I'm doing is laying out money, remodeling upstairs and doing different things before the windows were on the thing. And I said, you know, how much longer is it going to take to approve these things? And she says, well, I'm sure they're going to approve it tomorrow night. And again, I will repeat. I said, does that mean I should be calling my crew to come down and get started? And she said, yes.
And that's fine.
So
She may have
I
said
did
that.
have an approval.
Yes.
Was I to come and find you all? And I don't understand how it works. I thought she was the one I needed to talk to.
The approval goes to building inspector, then it goes through historic preservation for the approval.
Okay, so then I didn't understand that her approval wasn't good enough then.
Correct.
Well, thank you, now that it's too late.
The next comment I have is from the owner of the window company. If you're an owner, you must be aware that different cities, different townships have different approvals, and Ripon is a historic preservation town. The downtown is listed, and it does have a preservation ordinance that must be followed. I can't believe, I'm a contractor myself, and I have to take classes. We learn about asking questions. Does this need more approval, not approval? There's just a lot of questions I have about that.
Please.
So it's responsibility, to me, it's the responsibility of the owner of the building and the contractor to know and ask the correct questions.
If you'd like to reply to that question.
Yeah, he's absolutely correct, right? There is a lot of questions that need to be answered. Anytime you do any remodeling, right? Doesn't matter if you're doing exterior, interior, structural, non-structural, that's besides the point. But I believe the intention here was to fill the entire space with the window, of which if you look at the prior situation, inside and out, you have an exterior view, there are windows behind that boarded up building.
Up here?
Right, and behind there.
There's windows still?
No, originally.
Oh.
Originally.
Oh.
So even though there were windows there, we still fulfilled the entire plan of filling the thing. So the difference between now and then, we just removed the glass that was behind there and redid the front. So essentially, we did not change anything other than, having the window there. The window was never usable anyways.
Well, if you would have gone and known about the manual, always use the entire original window opening, even if the opening was partially filled in from a previous remodeling. So that would have answered your question on that you can't leave that top half round filled in.
For sure.
Right, absolutely. The only issue that we have with that is that wasn't brought to our attention during the permitting progress. Nobody gave us that and said, hey guys, these are the permit requirements. Here is the pamphlet that you have to follow. So mind you, about 2 months ago, I went online and found that myself. It would have been very helpful for Vicky to be able to have that if she's applying for a permit. Sue legitimately should have handed that to her and been like, that's cool, this is how you got to do it though.
And again, I'll just say that it is the responsibility of the owner of the building and contractors to ask questions at the time of measuring or meeting or whatever, not go the day before for a permit. The non-compliance of that building permit was on our agenda every month, I would say, since it started, since December of '23. So it was nothing that we ever forgot about. And as far as the emails, every email that Sue Leahy sent out and received was given to us, and we acted in good faith because it would lag over probably a 2-month period. We'd send out, or Sue Leahy would send out an email to get some more updating, and maybe a month later or so we would get more information about it. And they were always, what we were told is they were always checking on an alternative way to fill that in up above with glass. And it finally came to an end that it just never got done, or it was too costly.
If I could, real quick. Sure. Essentially, what came of it was that there was no alternative in lieu of replacing the entire windows. So that's what we were looking for, was some type of solution that would be some type of medium of, hey, can we mold a window together on top of that? And with the existing construction, without just tearing it out and starting all the way over, that's where we sit today.
Okay, I'm not a window expert, but I've seen.
If you started from scratch with the opening, yes, then you could make the window with the round on top of it, everything from that standpoint, but there's no frame to mold to. So from that, if we were to take a window and try to mold it on top of that window, it wouldn't fit the opening. We would have to start from scratch. And that's where we kept going back and forth with it from that standpoint.
One more comment I have is, we have approved archtop windows many, many times over the years. I can't remember how many we've approved. And every other person on that 100, 200, and 300 block of Watson Street have always abided by the manual and gotten archtop windows and followed the rules. The people have always come before, the day before, or I mean, not just the day before the windows were put in and got their approval, so they knew what they were getting. Yes.
Well, my comment to that would be, what about all of them that just eliminated the windows and put the brick up there? Nothing's like anything else on that street. What about those that don't paint their front of their building that look like crap? I mean, at least what I've got going on there is pretty acceptable aesthetically. I've had a lot of people stop in and say they love the front of my building, it looks great. So, I mean, I don't feel like, it's almost like hodgepodge. Everybody's doing nothing or a little something. At least I tried, because, and from the very first time that I remodeled the front of that building, I had approval things from, drawings from Craig's office or whatever. I took the exact color schemes they wanted, everything else. And I've just continued on that, upkeeping it as I went. But this was the, first opportunity that I had enough money to put anything major in there. And I stuck a lot of money in that apartment to get it ready. And I wanted it to look nice out front, because that was a celebration of my 50 years in business. And so I thought that I did a pretty good job on it. Apparently, your committee doesn't like the way it's been done, but I can't see that there's anything. Just go out there in the daylight and look around and see what everybody else's buildings look like. They're making no effort at all.
Right. We can't force somebody to do something to their building. But your comment of you've worked with Craig T-Bon in the past.
Yes, I have.
So that tells me you were probably aware of the historic downtown guidelines, the permitting process.
All right, John.
Things like that,
You've
yes.
belabored that point, and
Okay.
you've taken a lot of time, so
Sure.
we can come back to you, but I'm gonna let some other people talk.
Absolutely, thank you.
So Doug, then Mark.
Okay, so the windows replaced were the same as they were before, they just didn't have the design at the top. Okay, you're saying you can't imagine Sue saying that or something like that. I really think this is, no. It's a design manual, I get it, but she put some nice windows in, they didn't have it at the top. She didn't see the design manual. These people, her contractors, didn't know about it. Who was to tell them? Vicky or Sue? And I'm thinking, this is not the first time, I'm sorry, John, this is not the first time this has happened with the downtown merchants and you guys, and your committee. There's a disconnect with the form. We don't even know. You see, it was signed on 10/31/23. We don't know when it was approved. I mean, I believe you when you said you had that meeting that night, you denied it, but if they're saying that Sue is telling them, no, it's going to be approved, you're fine, and she had the windows put in the next day, Sue should have said that, but we don't have any evidence either way that she didn't say that or did say it, and I can imagine her saying that, and I can imagine, she's not here, and so what we have is this, and now they're trying to fix it, and so what do you want? Them to take the windows out and put the other ones in? I really won't go along with that.
Yes, if you want my answer to that, I want the proper windows put in according to our design manual. If you look at the application, it says right above where this other person signed, projects located within the historic downtown district are required to review the design manual. And it goes on, gives the design manual right there where you can find it on Ripon's website. That person signed it. For office use only, as far as I know, Sue approved that, but with conditions, windows, she wrote in there, windows must use entire original opening per the design manual. So it's pretty obvious, Sue, yes, she approved it with that condition, that they fill the entire opening. So,
Mark.
I have a question for our representatives from Infinity Roofing. What date did you consider this project finished?
So, as he said, if I remember the timeline correctly, the supposed verbal agreement was as of the 6th. We started on the 7th. It took approximately 3 full days to do that. So the statement of the windows were done on day one was not accurate. I was here as a compliance manager, making sure we were following all the OSHA and all that kind of rules. So we were here for 3 consecutive days on the front of that building, at any which time somebody could have came and spoke with us.
I own a business a few doors down. If I'm not mistaken, you were there Thursday, Friday, and finished on a Saturday.
That sounds accurate, right? And then we had to come back the following week to do a little bit of touch-up and sealing and whatever. But yes, it was 3 consecutive days that we were on the job site.
So that would be December 6th, 7th?
7th, 8th, and 9th would have been, because the verbal was on the
2024?
2023.
Real quick, as far as the permit being applied for on the 6th and then starting on the 7th, it's not that we just said we want to apply on the 6th and start on the 7th. We applied for the permit in November. It didn't get to the board. The reason that it got to the board that day was because Vicky went and said, look, I want to get this place rented. I can't make any income on the place unless I get these windows in. So she pushed it to that agenda to be on the 6th, at which point that's where that verbal conversation was made. And that's where we were kind of on the line going, can we help you customer? And that's where she's like, yep, I got the verbal, green light, go, come tomorrow, and we came. And I do admit that it was an oversight on our part. We were trying to help in a fast situation of, hey, let's get this Windows, and sometimes Windows takes 16 weeks to come in, and she's trying to get Windows purchased, ordered, delivered, and installed within a time frame to, well, she doesn't have tenants so that she can get this renovation done. So that's where, I admit, I skipped some steps, and that's why we're here today. So I get it from a contractor standpoint, I have some onus there, and that's why we're here.
Mark, any more? Jolene, then Jonathan.
First of all, Vicki, I admire you for wanting to make the downtown better. Clearly, you have been a part of this city for a long time, and you've done, from my personal opinion, is you've done a great job making sure that a historic building looks good and is presentable. Also, I can't imagine that this could have fallen in a worse place for you. You do taxes, correct? My father does taxes. He's not getting any sleep at this time of the year. I don't know.
I'm up at 4.
I don't know if you were given.
Sleep by 6 tonight.
I don't know if you were given a choice as to come up at this meeting or a meeting after the 15th, but I apologize to you if you were
I
not.
didn't want to be in any more trouble. I keep getting nasty grams. So.
Sure. Now, here's the reality. So it looks like you tried to do a good job and to be true to making your building look good because you're associated with it. Your name is associated with this.
Right.
The reality too is the Historic Preservation Commission, you know, you're not wrong. I mean, I think that if we don't have standards, this is where you have a mishmash. So I also admire the Historic Preservation to try to make things look good. And I admire the contractors for admitting that there was a mistake and could do better. I mean, we're in a good place where people are trying to do the best. The reality now is we have to move forward. So my question is, what are the choices here? So we continue to not approve it. Did she get a fine? Or we approve it and it's fine? What are the specific options moving forward tonight?
Your choices are to overrule the Historic Preservation Committee and issue a certificate of appropriateness as the council.
And then there's no other fees, it's good.
That ends the situation.
Okay, or
you can uphold the recommendation of the Historic Preservation Commission and deny the certificate of appropriateness.
right? And then so there's fines associated
I will leave that to our.
What does this look like?
Ultimately, I think you can tell by the back and forth and the discussion that occurred this evening, there is a mismatch.
Right.
And specifically, someone who is not here this evening, I think would admit readily, she was involved in this correspondence, back and forth with the window installer. So there was effort being made and good faith effort to fill that space, according to the individual that stated in the public hearing that there was attempts made. Ultimately, tonight would be the next step. And the mayor laid it out clearly. You can take the position that the effort made by the applicant is sufficient for this common council to issue a certificate of appropriateness. Or you can take the position that it's not sufficient, that a remedy has to be undertaken to make the entire thing glass. Those are the two choices. And then, obviously, the applicant at that point in time has to decide whether or not and on what timeline she would then take effort to turn that into a glass opening.
So just my last follow-up. So let's say she decides it's not possible or feasible. I don't know. I mean, so then what kind of a fee is associated and then is it over? What is it?
It's not, if you believe that what effort was done and looking at the pictures that Craig presented was sufficient for those purposes, that this applicant made a good faith effort to comply with the design manual, then you would vote that she has a certificate of appropriateness.
I understand that, but if it's denied.
If it's denied, then at that point in time, yes, you are saying that the commission and their reading of the manuals that it needs to be full glass, notwithstanding there are many, many buildings downtown that are either boarded up in that opening or have the same window that was placed in this building. But if you make that determination, then your position is saying, applicant, you have to make it full glass. Then you work with the applicant in getting that account. The city does, and that's be the position of the city staff.
Jonathan, Steve, then John.
I guess I don't have much to add after that. My only comment, when you were asking for the fine, I think it says in there it's like $35 a day, to answer your specific question.
And so but eternity?
Until it's fixed, probably.
Yeah, again, the penalty, obviously, I don't think we're in a penalty situation.
Sure, I'm just saying, to answer your specific...
Because of the communication. I don't see penalty yet. After a certain period of time, a reasonable period of time, the penalty does apply, and you certainly can.
So my actual comment being, I feel like it's not black and white, right? And we're not going to solve what the actual history is. We're getting a third, and we're missing a third of the story. And I guess on my end, I wouldn't be willing to put the burden of the cost of pulling out this window, and I'm assuming paying for that window, plus paying for the installation of the other window that's double. I wouldn't be willing to put that onto a small business owner downtown for something that we don't have the actual story that we'll never fully understand. But I do, and I understand where John's coming from too, and I wouldn't want that to be referenced in, the Commonwealth or anyone listening, that this is the precedent to just do what you want. I think there was a good faith effort, and I think we're missing the full story, and I wouldn't want to put that on any small business owner downtown.
Steve?
The only comment I have is, Vicky, right?
Yes,
You've been working with Craig for a long time, right?
since he came to town, yeah.
Okay. He was one of the ones that designed or made the design manual for downtown. You think that he would have mentioned something about the windows?
Well, I wasn't doing anything with the windows then. We were just, we were working on color schemes.
Right.
So that it would fit in with the other buildings.
Right.
And they drafted the color schemes and stuff. I was in no position when I bought that building, and even now I'm beginning to wonder, to afford new windows.
Right, and I understand where you're at.
I wanted to spruce it up.
I understand
So I started out right away.
where you're at. The only problem I have is, what we're doing is we're gonna be setting precedent for the rest of the remodeled buildings. See, nothing was gonna happen until you remodeled the building, as far as I can see. Now that you we're going to remodel the building, that's when the communication should have started. Obviously, we had poor communication someplace, but, right now, we'd be setting precedent saying, anybody that's downtown, you can do whatever you want.
Greg, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, actually, Vicky's first renovation attempt that shows the before occurred back when Main Street first started. That was done with people like Ann Paulus on the design committee. So that was 3 years before I even got here. We didn't have the design manual. This kind of stuff was paint up, fix up. And since I've been here, we've been trying to do things that are more structural, things that improve the value. So I understand what you're saying. There's been a lot of communication with property owners. If you want to say something more specific, go ahead and say it. But I've been clear with my involvement with Vicky from the start.
So it didn't bother you that they didn't follow the rules that you actually set up?
No, Vicky made an attempt to do that.
Okay.
Excuse me, can you?
Sure.
Vicky's question was, you're not upset with Vicky not following?
I'm not upset with Vicky because Vicky didn't intend to hurt or harm her building. So if you have an issue with the contractors or with the building inspector, take that up.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
John, then Doug.
Okay, just back to one of Lud's comments, that Lud said that there are many windows downtown that look the same way as Vicky's do right now. The top is boarded in. Those windows were not just replaced.
I understand that.
Yes.
I'm not.
There's some that they look terrible, and I understand that. And so just to get that point out, that nobody has done a window replacement on the upper floor that has not put in archtop windows. They've always followed the guidelines, excuse me, and put in whatever the opening was, they put that new window in to follow that. As far as, and to that point, the fairness of the others, some of those windows, they are expensive. And some windows, years ago, we made people put in all wood windows because that was what was originally in there, and that was very costly. And then the commission has gone to, okay, well, let's lower the cost, a good vinyl window, aluminum window, so we've changed our ideas on that. But in all fairness, for people that have spent the money and put those windows in, allowing this to pass, it's just going to open up a can of worms that nobody's going to follow the design manual. We have a unique 3-block system in Ripon that's unique to Wisconsin with the Italianate architecture up above. And to start boxing in these windows like it's 1970 again, it would be an abomination, and it would be the end of Ripon's downtown look.
To get some more information on follow-up on your point on the cost of those windows, could Vicki or you or the contractor tell me what the approximate cost of each of the current windows was?
The total cost of the, 12,000-ish.
For 3 windows?
Yeah.
So the current cost is 4,000. Replacement with arch top, you said it was approximately double?
Double, yeah, because the top, that arch top, the arch just by itself is $2,500 a piece.
Okay.
And then you'd have to get, that in combination with the others, and then...
Or framing and so on?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Doug?
I'd like to just address the precedent we're setting. We're not setting precedent because we're talking about this in public. Vicki over here has been through 2 years of this. I don't think anybody out there messing with this is going to want to do it 2 years. They're going to want to look at the design manual, and they're going to look at the cost effectiveness of the arch top windows, and they're going to probably say, no way, and they'll board up the window. And that's not what we want. We want windows up there if they're going to replace them. We don't want to board them up. So I'm going to say, let's look at that design guideline again and see if we can do something that would be more cost effective for a building owner for upstairs windows. Honestly, that's a lot of money for arch top windows for just 3 windows. So no, I think you need to look at the design guideline again, because we've had this discussion here before. It's a guideline, and yeah, you got to look at the cost, because if the cost is too much, you're going to board up the window, and then you're going to have boarded up windows downtown. So I think you need to relook at that. And lastly, we've been going on this for a while. Can we just call the question and vote on this?
I'd like to say a couple things before we do that.
Okay.
So, I already mentioned the fact that there are issues with the historic preservation permit the way it's been written up, the fact that it's not completely filled out, and the fact that the building inspector did check the approved box. That's item number 1. Item number 2 is just the delay in this whole process. The fact that they put the application in on October 31st, gets historic preservation on December 6th. The issue is discovered by the 8th or 9th, and we're now 15 months later. And there's no resolution until we get a letter 15 months after the problem that now you have an issue. Did the contractors drop the ball and not have the proper permitting? Yes, they've admitted to that. It's a mistake. We have to get past that. Doug brings up the fact that the manual is a design guideline. It says that right on the first page, which is actually page number 3, that this is not a set of requirements. It is a guideline. Clear English. Then, to ask a question to the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, is it not permissible to replace like with like?
No,
All right,
it's not.
Thank you.
Because in the guidelines, it says it must fill in.
do you have a copy of the guidelines in front of you?
Got it right in front of me.
All right, turn to page 13, please.
13.
Last sentence, last bullet point.
13.
Or second to last bullet point. What's that say?
The last sentence?
The second to last bullet point, transom windows that are covered or blocked should be reopened and restored.
Correct. Transom.
Yes.
That is on the lower level.
Correct. I'm referring you to a different project, 107 Watson.
Okay.
That received a certificate of appropriateness with no arguments or discussion to replace what are covered transom windows with something that is similar to what is already there. They were replacing like with like and not going to the design manual and replacing the transom windows. It was approved with no discussion, or minimal discussion, no argument.
Are the transoms covered right now?
Yes.
Oh, then we weren't aware of it, that there's transoms behind there. Sorry. That's beside the point. We're not talking about your building.
I'm not talking about my building. I'm talking about 107 Watson, or sorry, you're 107, 105 Watson, the Modernista building.
Oh.
The Preservation Commission approved replacing like with like.
No, that's down there.
That's Modernista, that's what you're
Yes.
talking about.
There are transom windows beneath their signage. You approve the changing of that with a bigger sign, so they're covering all the way to the bottom of the windows. So you approved like with like. She did like with like.
Their permit was not to change the storefront.
It is the storefront.
The storefront is considered from the kick plate up to the bottom of the I-beam.
Which there is a sign covering up to that. They made a change, according to you, they should have replaced those transom windows. So that's
asking to do that.
My point here is that you are letting some people get away with like to like and having other people do the letter of the guidelines.
No, I disagree with you there. 100%.
And also, these guidelines, I do agree with a lot of the information in here. However, they could put undue burden on a building owner to repair their building and let it fall into disrepair. She did a perfectly acceptable replace like with like. It looks far better than it did before. It is not the round top window like the guideline says. It is preferable, but it is a much better look. It is an improvement. These guidelines can cause building owners to not improve their building, even if it's a small step to the right direction.
No. It can't. You can't just be haphazard. It needs to be, follow the guidelines so we have a uniform look.
So you'd like to see the buildings crumble because they can't afford the entire process of the guidelines.
Possibly if they would have shopped around a little bit, they would have got a little better pricing, and they might have been able to get 3 archtop windows in.
I gotta talk on that one real quick. You can shop me against anybody. I secret shop every single contractor. We are arguably the most cost-effective window installer with lifetime workmanship warranties, everything that we do. You're not gonna find somebody that's more cost-effective unless you're literally dealing with, unreliable contractors. So I just have to stand up for myself there. We pride ourselves on giving very competitive pricing. I compete against people every single day, every single contractor in Wisconsin I compete against in windows, you name them. I can tell you how much they cost and I know that I'm underneath them. That's, again, find somebody cheap.
Doug.
Mayor, can you remind us again, how much were the 3 windows that Vicki put in now?
The 3 windows they stated were $12,000.
$12,000, and how much were so $12,000 for each window, so it's about $4,000 a piece, and that's installation, right?
That's what it is.
Everything. And how much then were the round top windows gonna add on? How much, so they're gonna be what?
Another 4.
Another 4 for a window?
So roughly $2,500 just for the window itself plus installation, so you're roughly probably right around $35,000 to $4,000 per window to do the round top on top of what's there. However, again, the point that Jake had made, you cannot mull a window together because there's no framing up there. So in order to do this, they would have to be torn out, framing has to be removed, insulation has to be removed, and then redone completely. So you're looking probably 20-ish Again, that's without hard numbers, right? We never ran that because it wasn't an option.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I can tell you from personal experience that the round top window in 1997, just the window, not install, was $3,500 per window. Take that into consideration with inflation and the last few years of inflation, you're probably looking at 8 to 10 per window.
And labor's got really expensive.
Yes. So I've got more points, but I don't think I need to continue. You see where I stand.
Should we call a question?
There is no question.
There is no question.
So
Need a
real quick,
motion.
so this was,
Question to call.
Jolene has the floor.
this was discussed like this, and the Historic Preservation collectively voted. So this was, the majority voted to not approve it. Is that?
To approve it conditionally upon them using round top windows was the vote.
The first one. The
first
one
one.
we're here this evening.
But why we're here this evening? Did the Historic
Is a
Preservation?
denial
They
of a
didn't-
certificate of appropriateness, which is a recommendation to this body. This body is the only body that can issue a certificate of appropriateness. The applicant is asking for a certificate of appropriateness, albeit after the fact. That's what this body is being asked by the applicant this evening. Yes.
Sir, you're the city attorney, correct?
Right.
So I'd like to ask you one question. Is anybody in this room right now on the Historical Society Board?
Yes, John.
Okay, so one individual in this room already that is going to vote has already placed a vote, correct?
Correct.
Is his vote applicable in this condition?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I have a question for you while you're...
There's two, actually.
I think it's a question.
I'm the other one on the preservation, and the owner did her due diligence. I feel bad for you that you're going through this, and I hate that you're going through this. And I'm a retired electrician, and you guys seem to want to put this on her. She has nothing to do with this. It's 100% on you. As a retired electrician, when I would work for someone, they would want me to do some outlandish things. And I can't do it, and here's why. To me, it was up to you to look. I mean, you can go downtown, you can see what's happening down there. That's why we have all these people coming down here, is because of this. And it was up to you to take care of this. Did you give her the options on the arch windows versus the regular windows? Does she have a estimate for both of them? And what's the difference in the estimate?
Sure. No, you're absolutely correct, and that's why we're here today, right? At the end of the day, did we have to be here? Absolutely not. Do we have to interject ourselves? Absolutely not. Are we opening ourselves up to some sort of liability? The attorney's going to shake his head? Yes.
Yeah.
We are, right? However, we're here to support her. And you're right, at the end of the day, yes, we have admitted our fault in overseeing the permit.
Yeah.
No doubt about it, right? But I do think there's some hearsay going on because we don't have the individual that gave the verbal okay to do the project. And anytime you have hearsay involved, like I think Jonathan had mentioned, it's hard to say who said what. At the end of the day, we worked in good faith to do what we could do for her in her budget that she had.
So you got the okay from the inspector?
They should have known. So we were told.
You were told by the owner that you were given the okay to do this. I would not go on a job because the owner told me something. I'm going to make sure I have the permit. Especially, I've done some work on historic buildings. There's just reams of paper on some of, this one's easy. This one was simple. It only has to do with the exterior of the building. So you guys dropped the ball big time on this. It has nothing to do with, I feel bad for her.
Right, and that's why we're here today, so if there is any...
You're showing that you're a stand-up guy for being here, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Because you readily admit this is on you.
We have not denied that, no.
And I can't sit here, sorry, John, but I can't sit here and tell her she has to pay way more money. But I can't believe we would let you, why are we letting you off the hook when you should know better? Can you explain that to me?
No, absolutely not. That's why we are here, right? At the end of the day, when Vicki asked us to come here, it was because of the logistical side of this. And You're right, at the end of the day, we went off of a verbal from your, at that time, hired inspector. Now, in your world, right, and as well as mine, dealing with OSHA, DHS, all these regulatory agencies that I deal with almost on a daily basis.
Yes.
Verbal is not the way the things work these days, right? The old handshake, the old, yep, you're good to go.
No, that's...
However, the good faith side of things, the good humanity side of things, she had a verbal okay to do it. I am going to, and in her situation, what she was trying to do, absolutely I support her decision, and I am going to support her, and I hope that everybody on the council supports what she did. Ultimately, I do believe that the renditions and the way that the building turned out, is it going to ultimately make the downtown area unacceptable? Are people not going to want to build up and develop buildings down there? I don't know. I think some of the points that the gentleman made of in the future you're setting precedents, I think you're assuming how things are going to go in the future. You might have people that drive down the street every day that say, you know what, that's beautiful, I want the building next door, or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, I just think that we're here because we did what we could do, and if it's holding us accountable, so be it. If the powers that be, decide to do that, that's a different route, I think, and that's not for the city council at this point to decide. Am I?
You are correct.
That's a whole, we shouldn't even be discussing that.
It's about the certificate of appropriateness.
Right. We can't discuss.
There's facts associated.
Right. Yeah.
And that
we can't litigate that today.
And to that point, it's not germane to tonight's discussion. We've gone quite long on this, so if we can move on from.
Yeah, I can't litigate it today.
No. Jonathan, Mark, then Doug.
I make a motion that we approve the certificate of appropriateness for 107.5 Watson Street.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Did you have anything else, Jonathan? No. Mark?
Yeah, I guess I had a pretty short and sweet opinion / thought right now, which is sitting on council tonight, I have to think as the city would, or as our processes would, because as a council, I don't think we're anything but the result of our processes and what we do and the people that we hire and interact with on our behalf. And I'm looking at the Preservation Commission Certificate of Appropriateness application sent in by a representative from Infinity Roofing, before the meeting, and then the city's agent, AKA us, by delegation, has checked yes, and approve. Now, there's clerical errors, as in there's no date received, I don't see a signature, which I would generally expect to see on a form. So then I have to ask myself, well, did the city follow its guidelines? Did the city do its procedure and policy as written, as intended, as we want within the ordinance? And I have to say no, because not to be that nitpicky, but our paperwork wasn't in order. So that kind of renders anything that happened after 10/31/23 a moot point, because the first step wasn't taken. The first step wasn't processed properly. The first step wasn't communicated to the business owner, was not communicated to the applicant properly. And I can say that with certainty because we see it right here and we're debating whether this first step was taken appropriately. And if you can't for certain say that the application was handled correctly, why are we debating anything that happened afterwards? Again, between the building owner and the installers. That's for them to figure out if they're going to change, put in a different window, or maybe get a credit towards another job. That's for them. That's not for us. We have to look at, did we do our job? And to that point, I think the answer is no, and therefore we have to hold harmless our building owner, who's clearly spent too much time, too much energy trying to deal with this. And that's my point.
Thank you. Doug?
I was just going, I'm fine.
Okay. Jolene?
What's in place to make sure that, I mean, maybe this is a future conversation, but that this is actually filled out, that who oversees, is this the same form that's still being used?
So there's a process in the ordinance that spells out how this is supposed to be handled very clearly, with deadlines and dates and timelines. Okay? So an application comes in, we have created this form to essentially ensure that the building inspector, or there is some staff review done of the historic design manual. So when it goes to the commission, because there have been problems with this in the past, right? So we've morphed this form over time. So those check boxes and things are meant to be just sort of advisory, right? And the reason why there's no more on there is because at that point, it was approved with conditions, and the project happened before a certificate of appropriateness was issued. Generally speaking, if a project is filed with the Historic Preservation Commission, the process in the ordinance is pretty cut and dry. It's approve and forward to the council, or not approve and set a public hearing within 45 days. We are over a year past that, right? And that's, you can see some of the timelines, you can see some of the delays in communication. But we would hope that these get rectified with the guidance of the ordinance and the authority of the building inspector to fine or stop work orders, right? Until it's resolved. That didn't happen.
So you feel good that this will not happen again, and that, like, again, if we get a form where it's not, things are not filled out, and I would say that in my mind, it was not approved with conditions because it wasn't checked. That box is not checked. So I think that we have to be careful if we say that this was approved with conditions, like, I'm looking at it, no, there's no check there. It is literally just approved.
That's a recommendation to the Historic Preservation Commission from the building inspector.
When you read the form in entirety, you see the other areas.
Oh, the other one, okay.
You see
I
down below,
but
keep
on
going.
this-
So
after what's written in the box.
The permit is literally sitting on the desk with an $80-some check from a year ago, because the permit was filed before everything happened. And it hasn't been cashed, because the idea then is if you do work without a permit, you can get a permit fee double. So then, right, there was no doubling of permits, there was no fining, there was no action from the Historic Preservation Commission between December 6th and earlier this year, when it got to the point where it was being requested of me to fine the applicant. And
It sounds like an issue, or am I wrong?
I'm saying I was not willing to fine an applicant a year and a half after the project had occurred, right? Without bringing forward and closing out the process that should have occurred in January or February of 2024.
We acted in good faith on that, because emails were going back and forth.
I don't disagree, John, I get it, right?
But I just want the council to know that, yes, there is a process, 45-day, either deny it or whatever, but we were acting in good faith to wait for emails coming back and forth.
To see if there's a remedy that could be had.
Yes, that's what we were looking
The Historic
for.
Preservation Commission did nothing wrong.
Right.
That needs to be stated loud and clear. And that's for everybody. Clearly, Dave's point is well taken, but that's not the issue before the Common Council this evening. The motion that's on the table is to approve the certificate of appropriateness. The facts around it are somewhat relevant. And that the council's got to weigh those for the weight they place on it.
Steve, Doug, Ellen.
Okay, the last thing I have to say is, whose signature is on this applicant?
That's the
Who's
contract. That's someone with the contract.
Okay, it clearly says approved with conditions. It says windows must
No, it doesn't.
use
That
entire
was
original
Sue's
thing.
writing. We're fairly certain that.
Okay, so they
Sue's writing.
obviously saw that when they signed it, right?
No, they signed that
That was
first.
after.
That's after.
The writing underneath is Sue's writing, we believe.
But above that, it says, projects located within the historic district
Right.
must be required.
Right.
We've already covered
So
that.
I don't like the idea that you're blaming Sue Leahy that is not here to defend herself.
Doug.
Okay, backing up here, are you saying that the applicant's building or payment check has not been cashed?
The permit has not been issued for the work.
Okay, so if we are going to vote for a certificate of appropriateness for 107 Watson Street, I'd like to add a friendly amendment that if that's approved with proper fees paid and everything for that, if the check has not been cashed.
The permit would have to be issued at that point. A permit via the ordinance cannot be issued until a certificate of appropriateness is issued by the common council. That is how it is.
Okay.
Ellen?
No.
David?
One thing, just to be clear, it's not your fault. You're the owner. The guy sitting next to you, it is his fault. He should have known. And he's shaking his head, yes. We can't punish him. There's no way, and I don't want to punish you.
Do we have any new comments?
There's no way we can.
Dave, do we have any new comments?
There's no way we can punish you for this. So I say we approve and move on.
Okay, anyone else? One last time, John.
I'd just like to make a last comment that if this does get overridden and it's approved, you're going to have a hard time with following guidelines down the road.
We've done that.
Main
We've
Street.
done that already.
I know, Doug,
Doug,
give me my
Doug,
time. Please give me my time. And you're going to have a hard time filling places or spots on historic preservation. People are going to give up. We've already had one resignation because of this, and you'll probably have more. Thank you.
Anyone else? One last time, is there any other questions or comments?
Can you repeat the motion, please?
The motion is to approve the certificate of appropriateness for 107.5 Watson Street.
Thank you.
There are no more comments. Roll call, please.
Dunkirk.
Yes.
Gallops.
Yes.
Gotsky.
Yes.
Iverson.
Yes.
Reamer.
No.
Schatzinger.
Yes.
Sorensen.
No.
Split.
No.
Motion carries 5-3.
Thank you. All right.
There's something else that I'm supposed to do now?
If you could check in with
We can get a
the
permit
administration
issued for-
office for the permit tomorrow to get all the paperwork finalized.
And I thank all of you for understanding what happened here, because it was almost a comedy of errors. Everything was goofed up. So I thank you for those of you that voted for me.
I also want to thank you and apologize for taking all this time for you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Responsibility and
You owe her.
All right, we're gonna move on then.
I had one last question on that for Lud.
Yep.
Will the permit fee be doubled because they did the work without a permit?
I would say yes.
Okay,
Yes.
just so they're
Yes.
whatever you need.
Yes.
getting off easy.
Yes.
All right, we're moving on now. Next is a pay application for Ripon DPW facility project. This is pay application number 3 in the amount of $849,800.41. It is recommended for approval.
We'll make a motion to accept that application certificate of payment for pay application number 3 totaling $849,800.41.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Just quickly, like, I really don't want to take a lot of time, but I actually did. The curing of the concrete.
Okay.
Not, top epoxy coat, the hardening, right?
The densifier.
Yeah, densifier. I don't understand why that's in the change order, because it's like, that's something that would be already built into a project normally.
Well, it wasn't discussed. Typically, in a garage, they'll just do a sealing of it, which is a topical sealing, just like you might do on your own personal garage floor, and so that was what was spec'd out. The foreman, mechanic, and I had visited a different public works garage that has not been in existence all that long, and we saw what kind of damage was happening to the parking garage with tight turning vehicles and frankly with the salts that come off of the trucks from their winter operations.
So you guys ended up seeing it and
We saw it, and so during the progress.
How come they didn't bring it up to you?
What's that?
How come they didn't bring it up to you, like originally when we were talking about this? Because they would know the use of it, they would know that it's gonna be corrosive stuff.
I don't know that they've identified this in the past as far as something to recommend. This was a topic of discussion that came up at a progress meeting recently, and where myself and my team inquired about what can be done with the concrete floor to prevent the corrosive effects from salt, because frankly, if we're able to wash that floor down once a month, that's probably going to be about it. We just don't have the time to do it on a daily or a weekly basis. And that's when this discussion led to the concept of adding a densifier to it. And so the contractor then did some research and provided the information to us. And then after consulting with the architects, we agreed that this would be a good way to go. It's got some proven benefits, long-term benefits, and so then the contractor contacted a subcontractor about doing it, and that's how we got to this point. My gut feeling, I haven't talked to the architect, but I'd be willing to bet that they will employ this in their arsenal going forward with future clients.
Yeah. Okay, Steve?
Alan, I got a quick question for you. Is this intensifier, is this slippery?
No, I did talk to the contractor about that. It will depend on how you finish the concrete itself. This is actually something that soaks into the concrete, down below the substrate, whereas a sealer just lays on top of it. So the surface will be how it is finished.
That was my question. Yep. I didn't want to see any employees getting hurt.
Right.
Falling down.
That was my concern also.
That would cost the city big time. Thank you.
Any other questions? John?
A question, how are we doing on budget? And I should know this answer, is this only our second change order?
No, if you look at the pay request, I don't have it with me, but I gave a summary for Adam to include. There's been 7, this will be the 7th change order, and there's a summary in there. As far as staff requested change orders, I think the net result is around $14,000. It's the densifier, and then prior to the building going out to bid, we had not yet identified for the bulk fluids room how we were going to receive the fluids, and so we did identify that, and that's about a $1,200 change order. The net, just off of memory without having that in front of me, the net result is we're hovering right around $100,000 in change orders. The lion's share of that is the engineered fill that had to be brought in because of the top, so that was like almost 90,000.
So yeah, it was 77,000.
Yeah.
That one was based on the quantity, the bid underestimated, and we had to over excavate.
Right.
So of 93,000, realistically, within some changes of just minor things, right around $16,000 outside of that larger.
Did we have a contingency in there for a certain amount?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Are
mean,
we close to that then?
I would have to look at that.
Yeah, okay, but we'd had something figured for that.
yeah.
Okay.
You should have more in contingency than 100.
I think what I understood the question to be the contingency for the earthwork that had to be done. That was, we worked with the architectural team on that in advance of the bidding process because of learning moments from a different project that was experienced, not with us, but with a different community, so.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's best to catch it right away. Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, so the motion is to approve pay application number 3 totaling $849,800.41. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, moving on to DPW facility equipment purchase request. Alan?
This is one of the items we want to get for the new building, it's a welding table. I asked our lead mechanic, John Quackle, to take the lead on this. He did the research, identified 4 different welding tables. He made the case to me to recommend approval for the one that we are recommending approval for, which is not the most expensive nor the least expensive. It's more towards the middle of the line. Largely because we believe it is sturdy construction. It's got a thick enough top for what we do. Another council member before the meeting asked why we weren't pursuing the one with the 1-inch thick top. Typically, in my experience, the thicker the top, you're looking for a true level surface for doing really fine-tuned work that where accuracy is paramount. What we do is we're building and repairing equipment that does not require that level of precision. So, and the one that we are recommending comes with a number of accessories such as a vise, a very well-made vise. If you've ever bothered to look at vices, Wilton is probably at the top of the food chain with that as far as their pricing goes. And then another number of clamps that come with it, things like that. And as I explained to 2 of the council members before the meeting, what we liked about this welding table, it comes with drawers, so the equipment that is associated with the welding table stays with the welding table. So it will help us with our organization.
On the recommended quote, it says good for 5 days. Did we call them and ask for an extension on that?
That quote that you have before you was given to us Monday morning.
Okay.
Yesterday morning. And it had gone up $70 in the 2 weeks from the previous quote, and it's been over $700 in the past month.
Okay.
So.
I move that we accept the recommendation from DPW for the purchase of this welding table.
I second.
Motion by
Do you
Ellen,
think
second by
instead of
Mark.
this, we should be more specific?
No. Sorry, because the price on this might change quickly if it is already changing quickly.
But isn't there a name? I think
Dan's.
there's a name.
It's
Texas
Dan's.
Metalworks?
Dan's welding table.
Sean?
Question for Alan, is this something that your guys can't build in-house?
We have one. It has served its purpose. Could we build one if time permitted?
Okay.
What I'm trying to do is get us to a point where when we move in, we're ready to go, hit the ground running.
Do you think you could have been competitive or close under that price?
I don't know that we would have been able to do as good of a job. I mean, they've got this design, they've got their jigs set up to do it, and whereas anytime you go to build something custom for yourself, it becomes a major effort compared to when you buy it from somebody that does it for a living.
I've seen it's difficult to get your jig holes and all the clamping holes where you need them to be if you don't have a giant.
I'd be willing to bet they have a punch for that.
Yeah, or an EDM oiler machine or something.
A laser, computerized laser.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on this item?
My only request is to just be specific on the Put Dan's custom oven.
Okey-doke.
Dan's.
Dan's.
All right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the DPW facility equipment purchase of Dan's welding table, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. All right. So next item is Murray Park quad project bids. Ashton, are you still awake? It's been a long meeting.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if she is. If you're there, you are muted.
She is muted. I
Adam,
can
if
see
you
it.
want to start this. see
Yeah,
if she-
Ashton might be sleeping already.
Just a second.
She does have I gave her the night off. She does have a little one.
Adam, if you want to start. Ashton will be with us shortly.
So in your packets, there is a kind of staff report regarding a Murray Park quad project. So taking a step back a little bit, we've worked with some of the ball diamond users, the youth groups and diamond boosters, and about a year ago we did a survey and they recommended that the city invest in redoing the fields at the quads. They're in pretty rough shape. They have turf in the center of them that needs to be maintained currently. That has created a lip over time because of a lack of maintenance and just sand coming into that area that you have to every so often rebuild these things. So working through that process, we asked how they would like to see that happen, and they determined that the best flexibility of the fields was to turn them all to a material sand, right? Like a mix of field sand. So we created a brief spec you can see here of the area to bid out. We did a kind of similar exercise about a year ago or 8 months ago without a spec. So we wanted to compare apples to apples. Ashton issued the RFP and we did budget $75,000 to do this. And came in at $95,200 with the low bidder being Hutchinson Property Services, which they were the low proposal last time. They are significantly lower. We have reached out to other field companies, or sorry, other cities and municipalities and school districts that have worked with them, and they have said that they would recommend them just because there is such a large disparity. Sometimes we just like to understand why, but this is what, from understanding Hutchinson's business model, this is what they do. They do it for cheaper, and it is a really good price, we feel, to get this work done and pay some attention to this ball diamond. I cannot speak to when the last time the city did anything of this nature, but it has been a while. And frankly, turning it all to a field that is sand or the material instead of having the infields be grass, that was requested so they can become more flexible fields. So if Ashton's on, she may be able to describe this better. I'm not certain. Oh, so she might have timed out. So maybe she can just go to bed.
Let's see here.
It might have timed out.
I'm going to attempt to put her in the waiting room, pull her back in. Oh, now how do I find the damn waiting room?
I have a quick question.
Yep.
The prices, the low price really kind of scares me a little bit, but will MSA be engineering and overseeing the project, so we know that we're getting?
Yeah, we can have MSA observe it, as well as Ashton and DPW.
Okay.
I think the goal is to not only have this done, but to then put together an annual maintenance plan, because we've talked a lot about this through our contracts with the Diamond Boosters and the youth clubs about how this gets maintained over a period of time. And you may recall that in our recent agreements with them, we put in standards that they have to meet based on contractor recommendations moving forward. So we're using the right mix, updating it, and then annually looking at maintaining this, which Hutchinson has provided a quote for ongoing maintenance year after year.
Oh, I think we might have her. Ashton?
Yeah, sorry.
Hey, Ashton, we're pretty much done talking now, so.
Doug, do you have a question?
Yep, I have a question. Can you tell us what was the next lowest bid besides this one? How much difference there was?
It's right here.
I mean, it's 223,000. So, if you can kind of explain that, kind of what you've done in terms of researching Hutchinson.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I reached out to, when the contractors submitted their bids, they're required to put recommendations. So I reached out to, I think it was Kakana, Nina, Manitowoc, a bunch of different schools and or cities who they did work at their facilities, and there were no complaints, there was no issues with timing, or they did everything fast, what they were supposed to do. Everyone said they were the lowest of the bids, so it seems like that it's just a trend for them. But they, quality-wise, they were satisfied with the work, with what Hutchinson specifically did everywhere. I don't know if you want any more specific details.
I would just ask, can you describe why we are moving to the turf infields being removed, kind of the maintenance issues with the existing turf, as well as then the flexibility the current plan gives the fields for different levels of play?
Yeah. So, well, currently, I think I only caught half of what Adam said earlier. My Zoom went away. So there's pretty bad lips on the fields, and they're definitely not a level surface, I would say. So it can be a dangerous, I guess, atmosphere for players when it comes to balls hitting the lips or people tripping or whatever it may happen. So they're definitely not in what the ball organization's eyes are. They're not super playable fields. So we definitely want to get at least something done down there, and as well as converting them into all sand and allowing them for both softball and baseball usage, because the travel softball organization, they use the quad for their tournaments as well, and they're not like technically softball regulation size. So with this work, when they use the fields, it will be softball regulation, and we are able to do different base lengths as well. So we can put in anchors in multiple locations, and then you just cap it off and then move the bases for whatever is needed at the quad at that point.
Any questions or motions?
So, at the end of the day, there's one that is significantly lower, but as Ashton said, she contacted cities they've worked with, they haven't said any issues. This is a summary, and the other summary is this is needed, so also for the safety of players, and maybe for future bringing in more tournaments. Is that a summary?
Yeah, I think we've done the work on it, issued the RFP. We have no reason to believe that Hutchinson cannot do the work as the responsible low bidder. And then I think, just the history here, and Ashton can attest to this, working with the ball clubs over the last couple years and getting agreements in place. There's been this point where somebody's got to do something, right? These fields are in really bad shape, and we own them. We are a partner in maintaining them. And we had a meeting, when was it, 2 weeks ago, Ashton, right? With the group. And, we shared this with them. They said, please move forward with this. It helps us out. And I think it begins the dialogue of what they can do as well. right? Because there's sort of always been this, you do it, nope, you do it, you do it. We need to get over that and work with these organizations to better these fields because they're very important and there's safety issues and other things that are ongoing there. This is, I think, that first step in helping rebuild that relationship and getting on a more aggressive pattern with these organizations who use the fields to step up as well, fundraise, do whatever they need to do to make improvements as well that don't fall then 100% on the city.
When is this proposed and when is the work supposed to be done? Is it?
So the last tournament is the last weekend in July, so it would happen after that. And I can't remember the exact date, but there's a couple days at the end of July into early August.
Okay, so going into this fall is when they would?
Yeah.
Oh, when we're planning on it, okay. I also just had a second question on that. It looks like to help cover the over budget amount, we would want to delay the planned replacement of the City Hall boiler. I know we discussed that. Is that something we would just then move like directly into the first quarter of next year?
Yeah, so we'll continue to analyze and review the budget and just toward the end of the year, if we have room to do it, we can push forward later on. You know, it's just, it came in a little bit higher than what we had anticipated, but from our perspective, getting the design done the way we did, we didn't have that at the time of the budget, so designing it correctly and getting the right level of fill in there, the cost went up as we designed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just asked because I always, you know, I'm a big proponent of preventative maintenance and having a plan for the, you know, big spends like this. So kind of weighing, you know, this is one of those choices of weighing something many people use versus something that City Hall uses and may have an issue or may not have an
We
issue.
just get to be uncomfortable.
I already am uncomfortable in this room. It gets cold.
We'll survive.
It's for the kids.
Survive and, you know, we could be forced into making a decision on the boiler sooner,
Yeah,
right?
it's possible, right.
So.
No, I like the plan. I think it sounds like it should work.
Jolene?
I just move to approve the renovation of infields at Murray Park Quads and use Hutchinson Property Services.
Second.
Motion by Jolene, second by Ellen. Discussion. John?
Could we add in maybe that we do get an approval or an oversee from MSA? I have no reason not to trust this Hutchinson, but it's a $128,000 under the next bid.
Yeah, we can review and oversee it, yeah.
Okay.
Want that in the motion?
Could that be added to the?
So
Mover and seconder?
I would agree to that, but does that mean that there's going to be costs involved?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be, we don't know what that'll be, but, you know, I don't think that this project is like a road project.
Right.
You know, so we'll have, you know, it'll be going on in tandem with the road project, so I can talk to Dan at MSA and have them hop up there. Ashton, the project is scheduled to maybe be done in like 4 days, right? Not that.
Yeah, or they said 8 days they completed it.
So your request is to have MSA review after the job is done, make sure it's done
We'll
properly?
just go up there and observe it.
During the construction,
During the
to
work,
make sure they have
that's
the proper base and gravel putting in.
I'll accept it.
Acceptable to mover and second?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you have that adjustment, Naomi?
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the ball diamond work with Hutchinson Property Services being overseen by MSA, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Thank you, Ashton.
Thanks, Ashton, sorry.
You're welcome, thanks.
All right, moving on to our last action item, infield development housing program. This is being brought forward by Adam. It is to encourage infield development with financial assistance. Adam?
In your packet, you have just a staff report kind of summarizing what the intention of the infill development program would be. Generally speaking, it is to support the revitalization of underutilized residential lots and rebuilding kind of older parts of town. The housing market study that we just did had recommendations. You can see it in there. I'm asking that we allocate approximately $50,000 to the project. We have approximately $658,000 left in the Affordable Housing Fund. So this is sort of a new program, mirrored after a little bit of the kind of the lot sale program, but more in line with the wildflower development on Scott Street. So the idea being that an eligible applicant would be reimbursed up to $10,000 for utility connections, as well as permitting costs to build a home on a infill lot outside of those areas that have been more recently developed, Sandmar and Rolling Hills.
John Linnell?
Could I get an opinion from Lud that if we vote for this or have discussion on this, are we exempt from using this program, or can we still use this program?
I would probably suggest that you abstain if you would be interested in using it. If you abstain in voting.
Just abstain, or should I recuse myself of all discussion?
I think just abstain.
Okay.
You abstain, and that leaves open the door that you may be interested in.
Thank you.
Applying for the program.
Ellen and Steve.
I move we accept the City of Ripon infill housing development program.
Would you like to add funding to that in the same motion?
Well, the funding's in here. It's in the program.
The initial funding of $50,000.
Well, it breaks it down by single family as well as duplex.
That's the amount that was offered, but not the initial funding for
The initial funding, 50,000? Okie dokie, add that.
All right, is there a second? Trying to make it a little streamlined.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ellen, second by Jolene. Steve?
Sorry, where are we gonna magically come up with all this money?
So there's an affordable housing fund that we've used and developed over a period of time when TIF districts close. That is sitting there. I said there's $650,000 that's available to use toward things. We've funded things like the exterior home repair program, lot sale program. This is the Ripon first time home buyers program. All of that has come. This is just another one based on the recommendations in the housing study.
It's there.
Any further discussion? Jonathan?
Roll call. I'll say the same thing. But, so I know we have a housing crisis. We all have seen the same report. Without putting like income limits in here, understanding like who's buying a house and who's building a house right now, I'm assuming the majority of this, like 10 to 20,000, is going to go to the contractor or the developer. That's probably right. I mean, that's who's getting the reimbursement.
It looks like it's for utility
connection, right? But it's somebody who could buy the lot and then resell the house, right? A developer could buy the lot and resell the house.
Yeah.
I'm assuming is what happens routinely, right? So, and that 10 to 20,000 isn't passed on to the homeowner per se. I would hesitate to say that. And the majority of our city isn't at an income where they're buying a new house or building a new house. So I don't feel like this actually benefits the majority of the city that I would be trying to support with my vote. So that would be why I would vote no, but there's nothing new or earth-shattering in my comment.
And I can just say, there have been houses built in infill lots in the community in the last 2 years that have been $185,000. They've been $250,000, they've been $350,000. So there are infill homes that are getting built in our community that are more affordable. There's one on Harvey, there's one on Seward.
There's one down by, is it one of the tree streets? There's an infill, Cedar.
But we're talking about smaller, more affordable homes that frankly, this program really would have helped some of those people. I get it that it's we're not differentiating, but there is still some very small affordable houses going up on infill lots in the community that we've noticed in the last couple of years. So just.
Any further comments? We have roll call vote, please.
Benkert.
Yes.
Gallops.
Yes.
Gotsky.
No.
Iverson.
Yes.
Reamer.
No.
Schatzinger.
Yes.
Sorensen.
Yes.
Split.
Abstain.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Moving on, project updates and staff reports. Anything with PD?
Real quick. Severe Weather Awareness Week, we will be testing tornado sirens as part of that awareness week on Thursday. 2 tests, I think one at 1:45 and the other at 6:45. With that, I will just add that this week we replaced the last of our old tornado sirens. So all of the tornado sirens have been new and improved and updated. So the last one was the one up by the high school or middle school. That was replaced actually Friday or last Friday. So we're all up and running with all those new sirens. So that's it.
Thank you. Naomi?
I just wanted to thank all the election inspectors who worked on the April 1st election. And just to give council an update, we do have 4,633 registered voters in Ripon. We had 2,515 that came out to vote, which is 54% of our registered voters.
Can you say, do you know what that compares to? Is that typical?
It's high for a nonpartisan spring.
Yeah.
And Wisconsin typically rates #1 in the nation for voter turnout. Go figure.
Okay. Adam?
You have my report, but just a few things. The PA study, we hope to have that on April 28th. The Opportunity Fund that we approved last, I think, month it was, we're working on finalizing that with Envision, and we hope to roll that out officially May 1st for applicants for business expansion and startup. You can see the updates to the housing developments we have going on. We did file an appropriations request today, or yesterday, regarding the well and water treatment facility. And then I don't want to skip over the Tree City USA recognition and the note in the Arbor Day proclamation. The city did receive a growth award. I believe it's our first ever growth award. That means we have done more with urban forestry in terms of just allocating resources, creating programs and forming partnerships, and that is kudos to the work of your Public Works Director and your Parks and Rec Director. And basically, I also will be serving on the DNR Urban Forestry Council starting this year, which apparently I am a small community representative of urban forests in this state. So there I go. So it's getting late, sorry, but I just want to highlight that there's been a lot of work there, and it's all been based on process and planning, and the Growth Award is a very nice thing to be recognized for the work that has gone in over the last year to 2 years after many years of sort of letting the forest go. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have no communications besides thank you everyone here and at home for putting up with a long meeting. A lot of work to be done and more to come. No appointments tonight. Any future agenda items or comments from council?
I would like to make one comment. I noticed we're starting to talk over each other tonight. When someone has the floor, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mayor, I believe you can interrupt if we're going on too long, but we're having council members talking over each other. We need to be mindful of that. You do not have the floor. You should not speak. Thank you.
Doug?
I would like to apologize for my talking over you.
Thank you, Doug.
Let's move on.
There's no further comments or future agenda items. At this time, I'll seek a motion to adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin State Statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. We'll be discussing Sandmar Development Property Acquisition Agreement, as well as reviewing council minutes from the last closed session on January 14th, 2025 for accuracy. Is there such a motion?
I will make a motion to move to closed session.
I'll second that.
A motion by David, second by Doug. All those in favor of adjourning to closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned to closed session at 9:45.